a lot about parents and how parents need to be involved. I teach in Lindell. I've taught for 35 years. I'm praying that my TRS will be there when I decide to retire, hopefully sooner than later. But how do you expect to fund parents that need training on how to be parents, for one, because a lot of times, even in a school like Lindell that we have, and good people, good parents, but there are so many parents that are uninvolved. And so those kids that we have trouble with, and when you call or you try to make contact with them, there is no, I don't know what to do with them. So if we can't get parents to help, and they need training in all levels of age, I teach high school and elementary and whatever, they need training. So if there's no funding for technology updates, there's no funding for great teachers to stay in great jobs, how are we going to get parents to get more involved? And I know the PTA, and I know how sometimes it's not very strong in different places. So how do you think, not just you, but all four of you, where can we get funding for parents to learn how to be parents so that we can better help those kids that we can't be parents to 24 hours a day?
Thank you. I think the real issue, though, is not so much even funding for parents. It's they just abdicated their responsibility, and many of them don't care. And I remember meeting one young man, and he didn't live with his parents. He didn't live with it was I think he lived with his great uncle. His father and his grandfather had been killed in war, and very tragic situations. I do think the communities can provide those. I don't think it's necessarily should come from the government. And I think churches, PTAs, there's lots of abilities for parents to reach out and gain help. We just need to be willing and approach them, help them, reach out to them, and show them different opportunities.
It's a great question. With my business, I own a funeral home. So I deal with a lot of families, okay? Some of these kids, and I know how this is going to sound when I say this, but some of these kids, the best parent they have is their teacher. And sometimes there will be some local people in the community that also step in. I hold a women's conference every year, free of charge, in the funeral home. We bring in people who teach things like this because we know it's a delicate topic. I see people who live in a storage shed, an AC in the window. They need help. They don't know how to be parents. If we can do it in the community, I'd love to do that. Otherwise, I'm open to you sitting with me and let's get our brains together. Because I promise you, there's an answer. There's a solution in here. We just have to be willing to work towards that solution and be open-minded enough to sit down with you. And I will.
Thank you for serving and for being here and sharing that. Many times our discussions of education and public education and private schools and other choices, these discussions assume that every child has a strong two-parent family and support and help with homework, and we recognize that's just not reality. We're so thankful for those homes. We want to encourage those homes. That's not where everybody is. And so, yes, you're right, we can't forget about those kids, and that's why the role of the public schools have changed. The role has changed so much in the last few decades. And even in strong communities with great schools, we still have children that need special help like that. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be a government solution, but we do have to find a way to plug them in with community options, obviously with church and with community support and the foundation. And it's communities like ours that can do that, and I'm glad we're here. But it's a huge problem we just can't ignore. Thank you for mentioning it.
Did he say a huge problem or a huge problem? I'm going towards the latter.
The government can't fix our society. We have to do it ourselves. And what we can do is exactly what I talked about. What we have the responsibility to is to provide an education for these young people, and I believe in when we put these kids in 4-year-olds. And I've talked about that. They are impacted by the teachers who are degree professionals, and I do believe as well that the impact that you have on them is lifelong. And so I think that there's not one of the four of us sitting up here that wasn't impacted by a teacher. And so I do believe it's the community's responsibility to change society. It's our responsibility to educate that child.
Last year, TISD instituted a Faith Action Network with letters to like 9 different congregations. Since then, there's been a lady that comes to school board every month and says, when are we going to get started on this Faith Action Network? How do you see TISD initiating a Faith Action Network actually being implemented?
And I confess I'm not familiar with the details of what TISD is doing there. We trust the folks on the board who are involved in the community. But yes, we have to recognize that because of a horrible decision by the Supreme Court decades ago, when God was taken out of our schools in many ways, we've seen what's happened. Now, we're thankful for teachers who still exercise their free speech and their faith, and for administrators that encourage them to do that within the law. We have to keep pushing on that. We've all kind of talked around it in response to the last question. A lot of these problems are spiritual problems that need a spiritual solution to. So yes, that's a huge part of it. And I'm thankful for Tyler ISD. They're doing innovative work. Again, I don't know the details of this program, but I'm confident that they're going to move forward with it. And that's a huge part of the solution, a huge part of the solution.
Yeah, again, sharing best practices. I met with about 250 retired teachers today in Lamar County, and they are carrying that program forward for Lamar County because they're not governed by the other rules that the teachers are. And they today were applauding the fact that they had 1,900 students who were being impacted by their faith-based program, and each one of them were praying for that kid and working for those children, and it's an amazing thing. And I think, again, is we share that because it's not about what we cannot do, it's how we do what we want to do.
One of the things I've always said in the military, the 2 best things you can do for a person is to liberate and educate. And I believe that. One of the problems we have is that in many situations, these kids, they have no faith. They don't go to church. And I think that's one of the reasons we see some of the crime that we see. I'd like to see prayer in every class before class starts. Me personally, I'd like to see Pledge of Allegiance every day. You know, it's a wonderful thing. It's the reason why our founders did that. It worked for us, and I think it can again. But we've got to get back to the basics. So I don't know how they're going to implement it without some major court battle. There's always going to be somebody who's going to challenge it, but me, I'm the kind of guy that says, too bad. Challenge it, we'll keep moving forward. I never stop.
Our Constitution, as one founder said, was meant for a moral and religious people. If you do away with giving an account to God on the day of judgment, your neighbor's property is not your neighbor's property, it's your opportunity. You don't have to tell the truth. And so fundamentally, we cannot fix our society with government, with force. We need the gospel. We need churches. We need families. And I'm not sure of the details of what's going on here in Tyler, but I hope people of faith step up, love, and pray,